Welcome to Coach's Corner. I'm your host, Sean Anderson, for Ponca City Public Schools. And every week, it's our sit down with the coaches of Pohai Athletics. And today, we have a very special edition of Coach's Corner. For the first time, we get a chance to sit down with the strength and conditioning coordinator for Pohai Athletics, Coach Wickert. Coach, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
We got to talk football right off the bat. 35-7 win over Tahlequah. First home playoff win since 1986, which is incredible. And now the players are headed down to Muskogee Friday to take on the Roughers. And that's going to be a big quarterfinal playoff match. Coach Wickert, getting a good strength and conditioning program in place. Tell us how you've noticed the difference in athletes at Pohai and how it's helping them on the field or on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you want that, think about, let's put it in context here, all right? So think about prior to this year, the last several years, it's been tough.
Yeah.
COVID, there hasn't been any consistent
Sure.
training. So for a lot of our kids, it's kind of, we got to get that groove again. We've got to, feel what it's like to strain and to be okay with that. Right, and to be okay with, being uncomfortable. Because sports is chaotic and uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so we have an excellent opportunity in the weight room to create some stability, some strength, but some opportunities for our athletes to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And so this is week 13, I believe, and so it's been tough. It's been tough, because, again, no consistent training. But now that I feel like we're finally getting some momentum and we're getting, kind of just getting a nice groove going, with all our kids. So
yeah, very good. Strength and conditioning. I mean, it covers all sports. I mean, Coach Wickert, you're seeing athletes from every team, I assume.
Absolutely.
So how do you work that? How do you work that schedule? Are they all in there at the same time? Might there be a football player over here, maybe some swimmers over here? I mean, how are you working that?
No, great question. So one of the neat things about the way that we do it here, and I think this puts us, a lot of people may not realize this, really on the cutting edge or out in front here. And so we have our strength and conditioning as an elective. And so all of our athletes it's highly recommended and suggested that, you get into, so for example, your first hour on certain days of the week will be, football. And so football being such a large group, they're going to, for the most part, be together.
Right.
And then for example, our second hour is cross-country track. And there are certain kind of, as you go throughout the day, then you get, your golf and tennis together, and then you get all your girls. See, I think we do a great job. Yeah, really a great job. We're probably one of the only schools, and there's a few others, but all of our girls' sports get access to the same equipment, the same weight room, and the same strength and conditioning professional.
Right.
You can't say that for a lot of places. I've seen it.
Yeah.
And so we systematically have a way, and I think that I'm glad you asked that question, because I think there might be some parents that might not realize, like, hey, should my son or daughter be in strength and conditioning? Absolutely, they should be.
Yeah.
If performance, right, and keeping them resilient and healthy is the goal, and you want them available for their sport, then we absolutely want them in strength and conditioning year-round. We want a year-round approach.
Yeah. And as sports aside, like you said, I mean, it helps anyone and everyone.
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Of course, a lot of folks, when you think of strength and conditioning coaches, you think of the football team. And but they're, like we mentioned, it covers all sports at Pohai. Basketball, wrestling, getting underway. And do you have different approaches? Like, do you have a different strength and conditioning plan for the football team, for the basketball team, wrestling team? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, absolutely. No, great questions. And you have to. And so a part of it is, who are the athletes, right? Who's that group in front of you? Mm-hmm. And so it's a core coaching value of mine to always meet someone where they're at. And so you have to take into account where that athlete, this group of athletes is at, and then what's the demand of the sport, what are the common injuries in the sport, and then you put together a protocol that helps to prepare them for the demand of their sport. And so, it has to look different. football is going to be a much different, ball game, as far as a training standpoint. Now, having said that, there are fundamental movement skills that we want all our kids to have, right? We want them to be able to squat. We want them to be able to hinge at their hip, to lunge, to press, to carry.
Right.
And so then you have fundamental sporting skills, you know what I mean? Like catching, receiving, striking, jump. So there's all that, and you've got various classifications. But fundamentally, we want those foundational movement skills. We want all our kids to have that, and they're going to get that in their training. And then in season is going to look very different compared to like our soccer all the season. Our basketball now coming into the preseason where they're starting to scrimmage.
Right.
And so it's so for example, like we have with basketball, with things ramping up, right? Competitions coming, they're starting to scrimmage. So in their weight room, we would dial back certain modifiable variables in their training. With soccer, right? They don't have those competitions or things, so we can really load them up, right? And really continue to press them. We don't want. We're not chasing fatigue. So when the athletes are in season or they're getting ready to start that season, we want to continue to train. But that's why you have a professional involved that says, "Hey, here's how we're going to adjust things so the kids are healthy, fresh, and that we keep the main thing, and that's them performing at a high level."
Yeah,
Right?
for sure.
So,
well, here's the thing. You see successful athletic programs in high schools around the state. The most successful, you're more than likely going to find a very successful strength and conditioning program at that particular school. And it's so good that we have this in place here for Pohai Athletics. And you see the difference. I know that gets you excited.
Yeah.
How excited do they get? Well, I'm talking about the student athletes when they start noticing, oh wow, this is where I started. This is where I am now. The difference it makes. That's got to get you really pumped up.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's really the neat thing about it. And so one of the ways that we do that we drive engagement and intent in training is we have a software, we have an application for them to even get on their phones, and so they can track their progress, the lifts they're doing. They can look at the sessions. They can even review that throughout the entire semester. And actually, and the goal is to keep that around so that kids can see, okay, here's where I started, here's where I progressed to. Another way we've done that I think it's going to change athletics, and I really believe that, and I know it's a bold statement, I really believe it, is the way we're doing our speed and power development. Okay. So we have a speed timing system. And so the kids will sprint, and we have timing, and Pohai's never had this before.
Wow.
And it is really driving a lot of engagement with the kids. They love it. And why? They get immediate feedback.
Yeah.
They're seeing how fast they are in 10 yards, 20, whatever it might be.
Oh, wow.
And then we're going to capture and measure verticals on a weekly basis. That's another big step in the process.
Wow.
When it comes to performance, right? And we want to make sure our kids are, hey, how do you know? Well, you don't know if you're not measuring,
right?
If you're not collecting data.
Yeah.
So that's a significant part of our strength and conditioning program.
It's so fascinating because I think a lot of us, me included, have the impression that when we're talking strength and conditioning, we're talking about squats and bench presses. Right. But there's so much more to it.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. It's movement skills. It's athleticism. Because at the end of the day, these are we want to create explosive, resilient, powerful athletes.
Yeah.
I don't need our athletes to be powerlifters because they're not in the sport of powerlifting.
Right.
I don't need them to be weightlifters unless we do have a few that want to go and pursue, an Olympic medal.
Right.
But they're not in those. That's not the sport.
Yeah.
The main thing is their sport.
Yeah.
And so so you have to, meet them where they're at and say, okay, here's what we're going to do to enhance athleticism, help build you up, protect your joints, help, just kind of build that armor, but we want them to be flexible, mobile, limber. We want them to be able to express, right, that all this great strength, and we don't want them to be slow.
Right.
And so there's much more to it than just weight on a bar. Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure.
Yep.
Wow. This is a fascinating, very informative edition of Coach's Corner with Coach Wickert, the strength and conditioning coordinator for Pohai Athletics. Coach, thank you for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. That is going to do it for this edition of Coach's Corner, and we look forward to having Coach Wickert with us more in the future. That'd be great. That's going to do it for this edition. Wildcats, thank you for watching, and remember, Hold that line.